Hey there, Delilah, what's it like in New York City? I'm 1,000 miles away, but girl, tonight you look so pretty, yes you do. Well, hi there. It's nice of you to join me. Come on in, take a seat. Let's have a little chat, shall we? Um, it's funny. I don't think I've talked about this before, or maybe I have. If I have, you're gonna hear the story again. So sorry, but not actually sorry. I'm just gonna tell it. So I have this thing, shall we say, where when I'm focusing on something, when I'm working, I'm concentrating and whatnot, I just burst into a song. It's a very common thing. A lot of people do it. I'm not being like, oh, I'm so random, because I'm not. A lot of people do that, and I'd like to say that it helps me think, but nah, it probably doesn't. Um, but it's funny when Ian and I will be working together. We'll be scripting or doing something that requires some kind of concentration. We'll just be sitting there quietly for a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden, I'll just be like, "Baby, I compare you to a kiss from a rose," and he's just like, Ian kind of can't stand it. Don't get me wrong, he's very, very gracious and he's very, very kind about it. But there are times when he's just like, Jack, please, I have to get this done. Please stop singing. And I get it because he's just got the kind of mind where he just can't deal with too many distractions. He's the kind of person that if he's trying to have a conversation with somebody in a really loud room and there's music playing, his brain just kind of explodes and he can't deal with it. So yeah, there will be times when I'll just be like, maybe I should like mute myself in case I just burst into song, because half the time I'm not even conscious of it. I just do it. I don't know. Whatever. But in saying that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gender non-conforming persons, welcome to this very special edition of Podcast of the Nerds. Special? Is it special? I don't know. Let's just say it's a rather different edition of the podcast. As you can see, or for those of you listening to the audio version, as you can hear, it's just me here today. Ian is off gallivanting around the countryside. He's hitting some frat parties and smoking joints and playing beer pong. And no, he's not actually doing any of that. Or he could be. I don't know. I don't keep tabs on the guy, but he's probably not doing that. But yeah, it's just you and I for today. But in saying that, yes, today, this is my show. I can do whatever the hell I want, and there isn't anything Ian can do about it. And Ian, if you're watching this, just remember, you got yourself into this mess. It's too late now. If you say, Jack, I'm going away, and you can do a podcast by yourself, and you can do whatever the hell you want, you better believe I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. But yeah, this is my first solo podcast. So this could be a train wreck. It could be a jump cut laden mess. But hey, maybe jump cuts and train wrecks are your thing. Who am I to judge? I watched The Room starring Tommy Wiseau, and I love every second of it. But yeah, if it is your thing, why don't you climb aboard the choo-choo train and let's go down like a blaze of glory together. So yeah, pull up a stump or a stool or beanbag and get cozy, and let's just see what happens here. But yeah, as I said, Ian isn't here, and my God, it's weird. Not just doing a podcast without him, but it's just weird in general, really. He and I talk pretty much every day, whether it's, working on the channel together or playing video games or watching something, I'm pretty much used to having pretty much daily contact with him. And so it's just weird being without him. I kind of don't know what to do with myself some of the time. And I was meant to get this podcast done much sooner, but scripting and just figuring it all out took a lot longer. And also I've had a bit of a kind of a minor family emergency, sort of. My sister's a little unwell. She had surgery just this afternoon. She's totally okay. She's awake now, and she's recovering, I believe. Right now, she's doped up on painkillers, and she's getting some sleep. Yeah, it's nothing super serious. She has gallstones, which can be quite painful, but to add an extra spanner into those works, she is also pregnant. And the thing with pregnant women is they don't typically like to operate on a pregnant woman. It's just kind of a risky thing to do, and it is only really done if it's absolutely necessary. But this was getting kind of necessary. She has been having these random gallbladder pains since the beginning of the year, and in the last few weeks it's just really escalated. She's had like 5 or 6 visits to the ER, and yeah, spent a couple of nights in a hospital here and there. And so the doctors were just like, look, at this point the benefits outweigh the risks. We can't let you go another 20 odd weeks or however long it is with this pain. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And yeah, pregnancy can just sort of make a gallbladder or a impacted gallstone riddled gallbladder just a hell of a lot worse. So yeah, so I've been a little distracted just talking to her and keeping her company as best I can from a million miles away. She lives probably a good 900 or so kilometers from me. So yeah, I've just been talking to her a lot on Facebook. But yeah, let's get started, shall we? Let's get into it. In Ian's absence, as I mentioned, I've been kind of a little lost, shall we say. But what I have been doing, or one of the things I've been doing, is I've been watching The Boys on Amazon Prime Video. And for those of you unfamiliar, The Boys is based on a comic book of the same name, published between 2006 and 2012. Published first by Wildstorm and then later by Dynamite Entertainment. I haven't read the comics myself, but the universe of the show pretty much exists as our world does now. But it's the universe in which superheroes exist. It's very reminiscent of the MCU and the DCEU. But it's like the MCU and DCEU if most of the superheroes were absolute scumbags. And I'm not talking about just being a bit of an egotist like Tony Stark. I mean, absolutely some of the worst people imaginable. And I really love it. I watched season 1 probably a year ago now, or a while ago, and I've been anxiously waiting for season 2, and it's just come out. But I'm used to binging everything, and Amazon has decided to release 1 episode a week, and it's kind of driving me crazy. But I guess in the internet age, we're a little spoiled in that regard. But yeah, I love it. But it's certainly not for everyone. It's very dark and it's very gory. I'd kind of describe it as the MCU if it was created by Quentin Tarantino. And yeah, I'm not going to go into it too much. I don't want to spoil it for anyone. I think we've been trying to keep things relatively spoiler free on the podcast. But It's got a very solid cast, most of which I haven't really seen. I think the only actor on the show I've seen before is Karen Fukuhara, who some might recognize as Katana from the Suicide Squad films. Um, but yeah, first we have New Zealand actor Carl Urban as Billy the Butcher, who's this like badass Englishman kind of dude. He kind of reminds me of like a character from like a Guy Ritchie gangster film or something along those lines. And he's also got some Tyler Durden vibes going as well, which those of you who have been around for a little while may know that Fight Club is absolutely one of my favorite films of all time. If I had to pick a favorite film, like if somebody had a gun to my head and made me pick one, it would be Fight Club. Um, but yeah, sorry, Billy the Butcher. He's one of my favorite characters. He's he's I don't know if there really is a main character. I think there's kind of a couple of main characters, but I mean, if there was one, it's not necessarily Billy, but we'll get to that. Um, but we've also got another New Zealand actor by the name of Anthony Starr. Southern Hemisphere represent. I haven't seen him in anything else before. I've been told he was on a show called Banshee. That's supposed to be pretty good. I haven't seen it myself, but I hear it is good. But yeah, Anthony Starr, he plays one of the superheroes, Homelander, but he's very much the antagonist. Would say he's the villain, and Homelander is kind of he's basically Superman. He's got all the powers of Superman, but he kind of dresses like Captain America. Oh, I guess I'm kind of getting spoilery here. Kind of. I don't know. I'm gonna try and keep the spoilers to a minimum, but if you're worried about that, perhaps skip ahead. I'll when I upload this, I'll add some time codes and whatnot. Um, but I do kind of wish when we're talking spoilers, because Anthony Starr, he's incredible. He gives such an intense and unsettling and oddly captivating performance. There's this one scene at the end of episode 4 of season 2, I believe it is, and I really wish I could talk about this in detail. If you've seen the show, I think you know what I'm talking about. It's a very odd, creepy, and gross, and it's a very like Freudian kind of scene, and it just blew me away and floored me. Just holy shit, wow. Yeah, and we've also got Jack Quaid as Huey, and if the show did have one main character, it would be Huey. The show kind of starts with Huey. Yeah, it kicks off with Huey and Huey's story, shall we say. But yeah, he's basically a young guy who goes through a series of unfortunate events and has found himself in quite a predicament that just sinks further and further, that he just sinks further and further into. But he's a good guy. He's a young guy. He's basically a kid, but he's a good kid. And I would say he's kind of the moral center of the show, I guess. And we've also got Erin Moriarty as Annie, aka Starlight, another superhero. But she's one of the good guys. I would say she's kind of the secondary moral center of the show, if you will. I haven't seen Erin Moriarty in anything else, but she's really good. She's got this like pureness about her. This kind of a sweetness, like what's the word I'm looking for? She's just very she's a good lady. She's a good chick, you know. And I think Erin really brings that to the role. Um, But yeah, she's just great. But honestly, I could go on and on and list the entire cast because they're all really really great. Even like you know the secondary characters. There's a woman, I believe her character's name is Ashley. The actor's name is escaping me right now. She's a secondary character, but again, she's just fantastic. But yeah, I could go on this the entire cast, but we'll be here all freaking nine if I do that. But yeah, obviously I highly recommend it, but I also concede that it's probably not everybody's cup of tea. It's violent, it's crass, it's gory, but I just love it. um, so in other news, though, shall we say, a friend of the show, John Bavino, tweeted me the other day and asked me to talk about some of the fun stuff that I'm into. I think he specifically mentioned D&D and Warhammer. I don't play Warhammer myself, but I do play Dungeons and Dragons. Although I'm very new to it. I've been wanting to play D&D for literally years, but I haven't been able to find a group or a table to play at. But one night I was talking to a mutual friend of mine and Ian's, Jess, who some might remember from the Bad Decisions live streams when we used to do those. I hope we get back to those at some point, but obviously life is very very different right now, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I was hanging out with Jess one night in a video call, and I mentioned to her that I really wanted to play D&D, and she mentioned that I might be able to join one of her groups online via Roll20, and Roll20 is kind of like it's a website that provides basically like an interface of sorts to play D&D. You can do all like your dice rolls and everything through it. It's really really good. I think it's amazing. It's a little glitchy and sometimes people's camera feeds won't show up and all that stuff, but for the most part it's really 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 good. And so yeah, long story short, I joined and we've been playing once a week for a good couple of months now. I can't remember exactly how long. I was thinking about it earlier. It feels like forever now. But I'd say probably 5 or 6 months. It's been a long while. But yeah, we're playing a game called Vampire: The Dark Ages. And if I'm not mistaken, it serves as like a bit of a prequel to Vampire: The Masquerade, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, because that's a D&D game. Then there's also a video game or a series of video games, and I think there might be a book, but don't quote me there. But yeah, the game starts in the Dark Ages around 1200 AD, I think. And if you and your party survive long enough, it ends somewhere around the late 90s or early 2000s. Right now, I think we're in the late 1400s, which I think historically is towards the end of the Dark Ages, but don't quote me there. I could be wrong. So yeah, it's a prequel to Vampire: The Masquerade. So obviously we're all playing vampire characters, and my character, his name is Jacques Delouis, and he's pretty much a straight up copy and paste of Louis from Interview with the Vampire. That's not very creative, I know, but when Jess said we'd be playing a vampire game, I immediately knew I wanted to be Louis from Interview with the Vampire, so that's exactly what I did. But he's kind of, he's Louis from Interview with the Vampire, but he's basically an amalgamation of like an idealized version of myself mixed with Louis from Interview with the Vampire, which I've been told a lot of new players, because this is my first game, but a lot of people in the group have told me that generally new players, they typically will like create a character that's kind of an idealized version of themselves. So I'm okay with that. But yeah, Jacques, he's kind of a good guy, and everybody else except for one other person are playing kind of traditional, evil, hedonistic kind of vampires. But yeah, from what I can tell in my limited experience, I think the game functions pretty differently to typical or traditional D&D campaigns or games. Um, the characters don't have the typical alignment system, lawful good, chaotic good, true neutral, and all of that stuff. Instead, players have to pick a road for their character, which kind of loosely helps you figure out who your character is and what they stand for, I guess. And you're also a part of a clan, and there's quite a few different clans. And I mean, I think clans are important, but at least in our game, clan hasn't been super important just yet. But the game is constantly evolving, so maybe that will come into play at some point. But yeah, Jacques, my character Jacques, he's a part of clan Ventru, and the Ventru are a clan of wealth. They're a clan of resources, and they have quite a lot of political and social power. And they consider themselves to be leaders in vampire society. They almost consider themselves to be nobility. Whether or not that's true is debatable. But yeah, they're kind of like, yeah, they're just kind of like, well, almost like the mafia of vampires in a way. Um, Kind of. I mean, I'm sure there's fans of the game. If you're watching right now, you're probably screaming at how wrong I am there. So, yeah. But anyway, Jack, of course, I know. Um, but just like Louis from Interview with the Vampire, he considers vampirism, or the embrace, as it's called in the game, to be a curse. It's something that he hates. And again, just like Louis from Interview with the Vampire, he feels as though vampirism has damned him and has ruined all chances of him living a good life and going to heaven and all of those things. But yeah, so like I said, instead of alignments, the game has roads, and I chose the road of humanity for Jacques. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. The road of humanity is all about sort of shunning your vampire nature, and or what the game refers to as the beast. But there's many different roads, and a lot of them are about embracing your vampire nature and all of that stuff. And so, to make sure players act according to their roads, you have a set of rules. I believe they're called road sins or path sins or something like that. Um, and the sins and rules, or whatever you want to call them, on the road of humanity are centered around just being a good person, not inflicting harm upon innocents, and being selfless rather than selfish, and just being a good person, trying to help and do good in the world. Um, and you've also got willpower points associated with your road. And basically, if you do things that go against your road, or you sin against your road, you lose willpower points. And then, if your willpower points get too low, the beast takes over. The literal demon inside of you takes control. Mechanically, the player loses the ability to control their character, and the character goes on a murderous rampage until another player or an NPC kills them. It's game over. Essentially, they just become a monster, an unstoppable killing machine of sorts. Um, but yeah, so far it's been a very roleplay heavy game as opposed to combat heavy, which I really like. I'm really enjoying that aspect of it. In interacting with the world and influencing things, and just seeing what cool stuff we can make happen. Um, And the group I play with are all super fun people, and we're all really into it. And our DM Nate, oh, that man is freaking amazing. I love him so much. Nate is just a really sweet, warm guy in general, but as a DM, he's just ruined me for other DMs because he's just so good at what he does. He's yeah, no, he gets into the characters. He likes to put on voices and accents, and like he puts so much effort into like bringing the world to life and like leading characters into certain things and he's very collaborative as well. um yeah, so he's also more into like building the world and your character with you, as opposed to kind of being draconian about it and making sure everyone plays the game he wants them to play. And I really love and appreciate that. So, for example, as I said, Jacques is a good guy amongst the vampires, and he wants to reclaim his humanity. He doesn't want to let the beast can control him and run his life. And but within the fictional world of the game, there are rumors of something called Galconda. Some consider it to be a fanciful rumors for naive vampires, and some say they have witnessed vampires achieve Galconda. And what it basically is, and I mean, I don't know a huge deal about it yet, but it's a way for vampires to reclaim their humanity. It's almost like reaching the state of nirvana for vampires, like the highest state of enlightenment. So it's a way for vampires to reclaim their humanity, and in some cases actually become human again. Or so Jacques has heard. We don't know. But yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it is either achieved through sacrifice, so sacrificing one's life for another, or I believe the other way is finding your true love, which sounds kind of adorable and kind of cute. I like that. Um, so yeah, Nate, our DM, he is aware of where I'd like to go with Jacques, and so the last session he introduced Jacques to an NPC who was rather impressed with Jacques' achievement in maintaining his sense of humanity. And this character hinted that he might have something to share with Jacques in that regard, and that they would meet again at some point. And I'm really excited. It's going to be so cool. But now that's not to say that Jacques will definitely achieve Galconda. It all depends on my choices, dice rolls, and whether or not the party manages to whether or not the party manages to survive long enough, and just all of those things. It could go either way, but I love that Nate has kind of given me the opportunity to take the character in the direction that I would like to take him. Work with me as opposed to telling me who and what I should be. But yeah, excuse me. Sorry, just going to take a little drink of water here. I'm not used to talking so much on the podcast, so I'm getting a little dry. Again, Hydro Flask, not a sponsor, but they should be. These are amazing, expensive but amazing. It keeps things cold for up to 12 hours or something like that. I don't know. It's really good. Sorry, but yeah, it's funny because obviously I know Jacques isn't real. He's a character I've created, but I've kind of become attached to the guy, I spent so much time in his world and in his head and figuring out who he is and what he stands for and all of those things. And now I really just want the best for my dude, He's been through a lot. He I mean, I gave him the same backstory as Louis from Interview with the Vampire, pretty much, but I made it a lot more grim. Um, and yeah, I just want the best for him. And I'm going to be genuinely sad if he doesn't make it. If he has some kind of sad and tragic kind of demise. Ideally, I'd love for his story to end with him reclaiming his humanity, possibly becoming human again. After all the trials and tribulations, I'm sure he will have to endure to get there. I feel like he kind of deserves it, man. Jacques is a good guy, and he's worked hard, and he's just and fair, and yeah, no, he does good things. Like for example, there was during one of our games there was a plague spreading around the city. I believe we were in Budapest at the time, and Prince Wenzel of Budapest ordered us to track down the source of this plague that was affecting vampires and everybody else. And long story short, we found this newly made vampire, a woman, and she was only like in her vampire life. She was weeks old, I think. She was only a couple of weeks old, and she had no sire. Her sire just basically made her a vampire and just bailed, and that's a big no-no. In that world, your sire is supposed to sort of teach you and show you the ropes and sort of be basically a parent to you, I guess. And so we got this woman, and we brought her back to Prince Wenzel. And unfortunately, because of her circumstances, because she had no sire, according to vampire law, she had to be put to death. And I and Jacques, we both didn't like this, and I had a pretty, shall we say, tense back and forth with the other party members, and they all like I was pushing back, saying, "Well, no, can't we just send her into exile? Can't we do something? Like, do we have to kill her?" And everybody was basically like, "Dude, the order has come from the prince. There is no way out of this." So. I begrudgingly, the way the scene played out, she was executed, but as the sheriff of Budapest, one of the other players, decapitated this poor girl. Jacques turned away because he doesn't like to see violence inflicted upon innocent people. Now, according to my road, the road of humanity. Me standing by and allowing an innocent person to be killed, it's a sin. So I should have lost a willpower point at that point, or a point in my road score, or something like that. But and this wasn't to. I didn't do this to try and get out of losing the score or anything. But I immediately said, well. Is there like a vampire equivalent of a proper burial? And much like in Buffy, dead vampires turn into dust when they're killed, except for in cases when the vampire is really, really young, like this woman was. So, long story short, Jacques gave her a proper burial, gave her burial rites and all of those things. And Nate, our DM, was kind of impressed with that, and he was like, you know what, I like that, and I'm not going to make you do a roll for your willpower points there. But yeah, I'm having a hell of a lot of fun with it. At first, I was a little nervous, and I was unsure of what I could and couldn't do. I was constantly being like, wait, so is it okay if I do this? Can I do this? Is this appropriate? And the funny thing is, like, you can literally do whatever the hell you want. You really can. It's a real life world that you can interact with, and you can do whatever you want. But you just have to remember that, much like the real world, everything you do has consequences. So I could go and attack a super crazy powerful vampire, but that's the end of Jacques right there, like guaranteed, because there are vampires in this world that are so powerful that they can incinerate you with just a look or a thought. Yeah, but if anyone is interested, I will try to keep you updated on the adventures of Jacques Delouis. Yeah, so moving on. So I wanted to talk. Wait, wait. Hello? Yes? Yes? Oh. Oh. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gender non-conforming persons, it seems I'm not alone tonight. Please welcome Mr. Ian Martin. Ian? Um, are you okay? You don't look so good. Um, do you need me to call someone? Um, Ian? But anyway, so I wanted to take some time to read out and respond to some comments over on YouTube from the last podcast. And this first one comes from Alicia or Alicia. And I'm sorry, I know I've said your name wrong there, but I don't know which one was wrong or right. She says, that's just the apocalypse. The frequency and ease which Jack keeps saying that made me choke on my water. And well, it's kind of unsettling and hilarious in all the wrong ways how comfortable I feel saying that now. But, the world might not be ending, but in a way that she has felt like an apocalypse. And in some ways, I think there are some similarities. But no, the world will not end, and we will all be okay. I hope. Next one comes from Artifact Pottery, Ohio, who says, the script takes long because it's art. Beautiful art to be rewatched multiple times and savored. Have a great trip. That was in response to what Ian was talking about last week about he struggles with how long it takes to write a script and make a video and stuff. But I completely agree with that comment. I say to Ian all the time that myself and the vast majority of people in the community would prefer him to take his time and create something beautiful as opposed to rushing through it and trying to get it done as quickly as possible and releasing subpar stuff that he isn't proud of. So, I mean, he does struggle with it, but yeah, he does want to try and streamline the output at some point and figure it all out. But like I said, I'd rather him just take his time. But next we have a comment from Sonic Rules, a name I recognize from the live streams. Nice to hear from you, Sonic. But yeah, this is in response to the first fictional character to make you feel seen. Sonic says, the titular character from Everybody Hates Chris. I know, kind of funny for a sitcom character to be my choice, but that made me feel seen. A dorky black kid in a majority white school with a tiny friend group. He got bullied a bit. He had no luck at all with the ladies, but he was an earnest kid trying to do his best. So that kind of reminds me of how I relate to Dizzy Harrison from the new guy. I related to him for kind of similar reasons, really. But yeah, thanks for sharing, and yeah, it's nice to hear from you again. Next, we have a comment from one of our regulars, the lovely Carly Rich. Carly says, "Hey nerds, good to see you both again. Ian, have a great trip, be safe, and be sure to let us lonely hearts live vicariously through your relationship. Jack, I can't wait to see what you do next week. You'll do great. Thanks, Carly. I'm doing that right now. So thank you. That means a lot. And she says, "Oh, and that movie you mentioned, The New Guy? Question mark. Sounds vaguely familiar. Wasn't Eliza Dushku the love interest? Um, is it weird that I can't think of a single fictional character that makes me feel seen? I feel like there's got to be one, but I got nothing. Maybe because I've never watched her feel seen. I'll have to think about that. Same with the concept of the perfect scene. I'm sure that there are some, but I'm drawing a blank right now.
I need your consent on a few items to continue.
Okay, cool. That was my phone. Sorry. Um, Sorry. Same with the concept of the perfect scene. I'm sure that there are some, but I'm drawing a blank right now. Good food for thought, though. Take care, nerds. Carly, yes. Eliza Dushku is in that film. I should have mentioned that last week because, of course, we all love Buffy. So why wouldn't I mention that? But yeah, she is in it, and she does play the love interest, and she's great. She's great in it. I mean, that film is just it's silly and fun, but it's got a good moral center, shall we say? It's all about being yourself, and through that, and I guess accepting yourself. And also, I don't think it's weird that you can't think of a fictional character that makes you feel seen, because I took a long time. I saw the post Ian mentioned of the person in the group asking the question, and I took a good couple hours to think about it, and finally came up with Dizzy. So no, that's not weird at all. And lastly, we have a comment from Unshelled Pity, who suggests that we watch Charlie Chaplin's speech at the end of The Great Dictator for our One Perfect Scene segments. I absolutely adore that scene. I love it so freaking much. I don't know if Ian has seen it. I assume he probably would have, because it's become pretty famous in recent years. But yeah, I like it, and I'll put it on the list, and I'm sure we'll get to it at some point. Yeah, as always, thank you to everyone who watches and reaches out to us and leaves comments. We really appreciate it, and we will always try our best to engage with you guys as much as we can. And yeah, as always, feel free to leave us a comment on YouTube or reach out to us on to Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. So, for this next segment, I wanted to get a little serious and talk about some serious stuff for a little bit. Now, before I met Ian and he and I became friends, I had never done anything quite like this before, streaming and podcasts and all of those things. I did drama back in high school, and I've done some public speaking before, but nothing like this really. This is still very new to me. So when Ian completely out of the blue asked me if I wanted to co-host the podcast with him, well, I immediately said yes. There was no question about whether or not I wanted to do it or not, or whether I would or wouldn't do it. But I immediately felt kind of terrified, because I knew that doing this was going to force me to confront and try to deal with some insecurities that I have, some stuff I've had for a long time. And if I'm being honest, it's been quite tough. While we've been doing this, in the time we've been doing this, I should say, Ian has talked me down out of a lot of self-loathing spirals, shall we say, and he's talked me down off a lot of metaphorical ledges, shall we say, because pretty much every time we finish filming a podcast, I get this sort of anxious feeling, and I have pretty much the same thoughts every time. there was one time it didn't happen. I was super happy with how the podcast went. I can't remember which episode that was, but that's only really happened once. But yeah, pretty much every time we finish filming a podcast, I have these thoughts along the lines of, oh, I didn't express myself properly, and I hesitated too much here, and I stuttered too much there. And I walk away from a lot of podcasts feeling as though I didn't do a good enough job, I guess. Or I just wasn't satisfied with my performance, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if performance is the right word, because that kind of suggests that I'm putting on a show or something, or I'm trying to be something I'm not, and that's not really the case. But there is a certain art to it, you know. Like I'm talking to you right now because I'm filming. Now I put this lovely jacket on. And you know, I get dressed up and I talk. When I'm sitting here alone, I'm not addressing my webcam and talking. I'm just sitting here living, existing, shall we say. Um, but yeah, a lot of those feelings obviously stem from insecurities, and a lot of those insecurities are just kind of based around my idiosyncrasies, or things that are just kind of out of my control. And a lot of them are just kind of based around just bullshit I tell myself, really. So anyway, some of you may have noticed, or maybe not, I don't know, that I have a bit of a stutter. Funny, see? I started on that line, see? Funny. Um, but yeah, it's a real, genuine speech impediment that I've had pretty much ever since I started talking. I don't know if there is a genetic component to it. I haven't really researched it, but it's interesting though, because I've my grandfather has a stutter, and so does one of my cousins. So maybe there is. I don't know. I haven't looked into it, as I said. I do remember having speech therapy when I was a kid, and the speech therapist explained it by saying that it's kind of because your brain gets ahead of itself. It's like you're talking and your brain kind of goes to the next thing you want to say, as opposed to focusing on the thing you're currently saying, if that makes sense. And the best way I found to combat it, and this is something I learnt from the speech therapist, is to firstly think about what I'm saying, or what I'm going to say, and more importantly, just slow down. Which is something I kind of struggle with. I tend to talk fast in general. Like even with this podcast, I feel like I've been talking a little fast, but I haven't. I've been trying not to. I've been trying to sort of slow it down a little bit. But then yeah, I tend to just start talking fast, and then when I get muddled and start to stutter, I get nervous, and then I get self conscious, and then it leads me trying to talk. It leads me to trying to talk even faster, and because I get nervous, and then it's just a huge freaking mess. But yeah, it's something I really hate, and I'm very self-conscious about it. I know that in terms of stutters, mine is pretty mild. There are others who have cases where it literally impedes their ability to talk. Yeah, pretty much everyone I know tells me that they don't really notice it. Most people say they had no idea that I have a stutter until I bring it up. And I do believe that for the most part. So yeah, Ian and I will be in the middle of filming a podcast or something, and I will begin to explain something or talk about something, and I'll start to stutter. It's usually because I've overscripted something and made it too wordy, or I get confused by my own wording of something. And yeah, I will kind of start to panic a little bit, but the more I panic, the more anxious I get, and the more I tend to stutter. So it's very frustrating in that regard, shall we say. Um, so that very, very much plays into my feelings of being disappointed in my performance at the end of podcast. I also used to have similar feelings after we did the Patreon hangouts, but I've been able to sort of let that go, kind of. Mainly because I stopped watching the replays. Pro tip: if you're hypercritical of yourself, like I can be, whatever you do, don't watch it yourself on screen or in a video or a stream or whatever. Just don't do it. It doesn't lead to anything good. Trust me. Um, but yeah, in terms of the stutter, I understand that. I understand that the only thing I can really do to deal with it is to one, accept that sometimes I will stutter, but also just loosen up and relax and just slow down, as I said. Because for a lot of people, stuttering happens when you're just mentally getting ahead of yourself, really. And yeah, so another insecurity that I have is a lot more, shall we say, petty? Petty? I'm not sure if petty is the right word, but I'll try to explain. So another instant thought that I had when Ian asked me to co-host was along the lines of my inner dialogue just kind of being like, but why would you want me to podcast with you? You know, surely you know people that are far more intelligent and far more interesting than I am. So why why would why would you want me? And I guess what I'm trying to get at is that even though I know deep down it isn't true, there's this part of my brain that thinks I'm kind of dumb and just painfully inadequate. And again, I know it's not true, but my brain doesn't know that. Um, a phrase I often use, which drives a lot of my friends insane, is I will say, it's like I'm a mortal trying to walk amongst titans. And what I mean by that is, I know a lot of super intelligent and creative people, and I often just have this feeling of like, why do you want to hang out with me? Like, I know I'm nice and I can be funny sometimes, but like, why aren't you like? Aren't I boring to you, or something like that? Um, but again, yeah, like my family and my friends, they all tell me that I'm smart and I'm interesting and all those things, and I can hold my own in conversations. But like, it it just doesn't matter, if you're a shitty person, it doesn't matter how many digits of pi you can recite or how much you know about the reign of Emperor Commodus or whatever. It truly doesn't matter. But this is one insecurity that I kind of, pardon the pun, but I feel insecure about. Because it's petty and it's stupid. And if you think about it, it's kind of, I don't know, I kind of feel like it's based on, or it's based in ego and a fear of being viewed in a lesser light. I can hear that psych major Holden, I think his name is, from season 6 of Buffy, Conversations with Dead People. He says, you have a superiority complex and you have an inferiority complex about it, and that's kind of how it feels, if I'm being honest. But yeah, at the same time, it's a very human feeling. So I need to not beat myself up about that, I guess. But yeah, before I wrap this section up, though, I wanted to reply to some tweets. The other day, I put out a tweet asking you fine folks about your insecurities and how you deal with them. But Before I go any further, I just want to say if you feel the need to reply to any of these people, whether it be here, YouTube, or on Twitter, please be kind and please be respectful. These people have graciously shared some of their intimate and somewhat vulnerable things about themselves. They're not YouTubers. They don't put themselves out on the internet. So say whatever the hell you want to me or about me. That's cool. But just please be kind to these people, okay? Please. The first one here comes from Charji, a lovely person who I've had many pleasant conversations with. Charji says, I get anxious about not living up to expectations of others and of myself. I do well in my studies and I'm passionate about what I'm learning, but then sometimes it feels like too much, and then I feel lazy when I'm not putting in as much time and effort as I'm capable of. As to what I do to deal with it, not much. I try to distract myself with other things like Buffy or my latest hobby until I either feel better or I'm not forced to concentrate on my studies because deadlines are whooshing towards and past me. Chargy, yeah, that's a very common one. Excuse me, drink break again. I know a lot of people who struggle with similar feelings, and I myself, I can relate to some of it. I am very hard on myself, in case you guys couldn't already tell. But at the same time, there's always been this part of me that is kind of this sort of anti-establishment punk rocker who wants to march to the beat of his own drum and only wants to live up to his own expectations and no one else's. And I still kind of feel that way in a way. My mother and I, my dear mother, she and I, we sometimes have a rocky but ultimately good relationship. But it drives her crazy when I say that as much as I love her and as much as I would like her to approve of me and my choices in life, I actually don't care all that much if she doesn't approve or not, or if she disagrees. And she understandably, she hates that. And I get it. But again, I am my own person and I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. And I've just kind of always had that as a part of me, I guess. But, in saying that, for the most part, she doesn't really disapprove of me all that much or my life choices. Like I said, we have a really good relationship. And like, for example, I am a heavily tattooed person. And whilst my mum, she doesn't personally like tattoos, she's not a big fan. But she's, at the same time, she's never told me not to get a tattoo ever. But a big part of that might be because she knows that I won't listen and I would just do whatever I want anyway. But still, props to her because she's never told me not to get a tattoo, and she has said that she likes my tattoos, so that's kind of nice. Moving on. But of course, Chargy, thank you, and it's always nice to hear from you. The next one comes from Robin, who says, I am insecure about being a burden to people. I've been told I was a burden twice. Ooh, that's rough. Once when I was in a deep depression and it was warranted. I don't know if it's ever warranted. I mean, there's a certain way of, I don't know, you can, I'm just the kind of person that I would always choose kindness over not being kind, or I try to anyway. Sorry, let me finish here. it was warranted, and the second time it was it was a completely fabricated story the person made up, but that didn't hurt any less. Understandably, of course. So I can never find a balance between independence and dependence on people, and when it's okay and when it's not. I'm constantly trying to balance the two, and it's so mentally exhausting. And the second part of the question, which is how do you deal with it? Robin says, I suppose I haven't overcome this as it is constantly plaguing me. LOL. But yeah, Robin, I do know what you're talking about. I myself, I've struggled with depression and anxiety in varying degrees since I was a teenager, and I've had those same fears myself. And I think there was a point in my sort of early to mid teens where I kind of became a burden to a friend of mine. Um, but that's a story for another time. Um, and whilst I do agree with you that you need to kind of find a balance between getting support from those around you and kind of standing on your own two feet to try and sort of shrug off those demons, because at the end of the day, ultimately those of us that struggle with those demons. It's ultimately up to us to do the work to slay those demons. I'm not saying do it alone or any of those things, but it takes something from within you to do that. Shall we say? But ultimately, I think that as much as you or I might not think it, the people around us do love us. They do want us to be okay, and they do want to support us when we need it. And most of the time, when we feel like we're being a burden, we're really not. But thank you for sharing that. And yeah, Robin, just remember that you are loved, and you are not as much of a burden as you probably think you are. I'm sure of it. No one ever is. Um, And this next one, though, comes from a very dear friend of Ian and I, Sarah, also known as the Costume Nerd. She has a YouTube channel called Sorry, she has a see stutter. Woo. She has a YouTube channel called the Costume Codex, where she talks about costumes in television and film, and she goes into their importance and. Particularly like the subliminal things that costumes could be suggesting, like themes and whatnot. Absolutely great stuff, and you should totally check it out. But Sarah says, I get social anxiety when I don't know people or there's too many of them. There's a reason I'm always made up for the hangouts and my videos. The whole putting on my face ritual is my way of quieting my insecurity and anxiety. Yeah, obviously I'm not a woman myself, but I do have three older sisters, and I have a few close friends who are women, and they all pretty much say the same thing in regards to makeup. Some people will say to them, and especially men, things along the lines of, "Oh, you're so pretty. You don't need to wear makeup. Why do you do it? You don't need it. Blah 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 blah." But see, the thing is, it's not about other people or how they look to other people. It's about how wearing makeup makes a woman feel, and the confidence that it gives them. Most of the women I know don't wear makeup for other people. They wear it for themselves. But yeah, Sarah, I can also relate to what you're saying about social anxiety, though. Social anxiety is a weird one for me, kind of, because I don't get it all the time, but when I do, it hits pretty hard. See, I Personally, I prefer to hang out in smaller groups of like 4 or 5 people. And like if I'm at a party with like 20 or 30 people, I can like flip a switch and just let loose and party and have fun and be the life of the party and all of that. Um, but honestly, 9 times out of 10, I'd much rather be sitting in a beer garden with a few people and having a couple of drinks and just chatting, you know. That is, of course, unless I'm in a concert watching a band or something. I'm a bit of a metalhead, and so to me, when I go and see a band in that situation, I don't really socialize too much because I'm watching the band and I'm head banging and going off and having a good time and all of those things. But yes, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for sharing. And of course, you know, Jackie loves you, my dear. I love you very, very, very much. Um, this next one comes from another familiar face, Geek Girl. She's been around in the Passion of the Nerd community for a couple of years now. But she says, I'm insecure about people using literally anything to put me down. It makes me scared to do things. Mostly, I'm insecure to try and do new things because I'm scared if I fail, people are going to bully me about it or get made or I'm going to get made fun of for trying or being interested in the thing that I tried to do, reinforcing my doubts about myself. I hope that made sense. Well, Geek Girl, that definitely does make sense, and a lot of that plays into my own securities about doing the podcast actually. So yeah, I very much understand what you're talking about. But I'd really encourage you to try and push through that. It's not easy, I know, but I would hate to think that you could be missing out on something really, really great, and yeah, you know, missing out on all these really meaningful like experiences, but because of it. So best of luck and Godspeed, and just yeah, you know, just keep on pushing back, just keep on pushing back. And well, I think we're having this podcast is a little on the shorter side this week. I think it doesn't feel like I've been going for that long, but that is about it from me. Before we head over to Ian from the past for the fanfic reading, but you will be hearing from me one more time afterwards, so I can say goodbye. I'd just like to let you know that I am at Lack of Surprise 1 on Twitter. That's all one word with the number 1 at the end. And of course, you can follow Ian at Ian Netrum on Twitter. And of course, you can also find him over at youtube.com/Passion of the Nerd. If you'd like to support the channel and keep us flush with chewing gum and blood pressure medication, you can do so at patreon.com/Passion of the Nerd. With the $5 and up club, you can join us in the Google Hangouts, where we discuss episodes of Buffy and Angel. If I'm not mistaken, the next one will be in about 2 weeks' time. I think we were taking a little time off from them. They're a lot of fun, but they're I think the last one went for a hell of a long time. They're getting longer and longer and longer. But yeah, they're a great time. And if you want, you can head on over to Patreon and then join us if you want to. Or you can also support us by grabbing yourself something from passionofthenerd.com/store. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs, phone cases, all of the usual merch stuff you'd expect to find. And also, if you are an Amazon Prime member, you may not realize this, but you can support us for free by using your monthly free Amazon Prime Twitch subscription. You can do that over at twitch.tv/Passion of the Nerd. All right, Ian, my dude, take it away.
Here is Gone by Terri Botta, Chapter 31. Spike and Dawn were sitting in the living room when the clock struck 8. Dawn was painting his nails their usual black. She had noticed that the manicure Harmony had given him weeks ago was in dire need of repair, and was yammering about boys. He was pretending to pay attention, and nodding, and making agreeing noises at appropriate intervals. Then Giles walked in to save him. "Rupert, my fellow countryman, please tell me you brought alcohol," he called as Giles entered the house. He saw Giles taking in the tableau before him and watched the man give a visible sigh of relief that he would not be alone with a female teenager. Spineless wanker. "Spike, it's so good to see you up and about," Giles greeted, thankfully carrying 2 six-packs of beer. He plastered a smile on his face. "Well, you know, takes more than a psychotic ex-girlfriend using my chest as a cutting board to keep me down." "Well, yes, I had learned from experience that vampires are remarkably resilient." "Yeah, we are. Is that Corona?" Giles looked at the beer he was carrying. Yes, it is." Heedless of his wet nails and Dawn's disapproving stare, he held out a hand. "Pass one over, Roops." Giles came into the room and handed him a bottle obligingly. "Ta," he said, opening the bottle with his teeth and taking a swig. Dawn made a disgusted sound and put away the nail polish. "I'm going to go do my homework," she groused sullenly and stalked from the room. They watched her go. "Have we been reprieved?" Giles asked. Spike swallowed his mouth full of beer. "Not a chance. I give her an hour tops. We're too good of an opportunity to miss. Good Lord, I can't imagine what it must be like to live with a teenaged girl, let alone 2 other, headstrong women. It's easy. You just got to remember 3 things. 1, keep your mouth shut and your head down. If they don't notice you, you're in the clear. 2, the answer to any question they ask you is yes. Unless, of course, it's the dreaded, does this outfit make me look fat question, in which case the answer is a vehement no. Even if she looks like a week-old stuffed sausage in it, the answer is still no. 3, if your girl is an insane bitch who wants to destroy the world, bug her out of there as fast as you can," he explained, counting off on his fingers. "Thank you for that useful and helpful advice, Spike." He took another swig of beer. "Always glad I can be of service." Giles came and sat next to him, his face serious. "I was going through that journal you lent me, the one where you wrote down what you remembered from the other timeline. It would seem that we will learn of Warren very soon." Spike nodded. "Yeah, tonight. His sexbot crashes a party over at the university. I was there before, got tossed through a window. Glad I'm not there now. It's good enough if I'm here to learn about it, right? Then I can go contact him and make me one of Buffy." Giles nodded uncomfortably. "Yes, that would seem logical. Unless you think we can skip it this time around. Do without the bloody bot." Giles pulled out his beer and opened it. "No, I think it would be best to keep things as they were. As distasteful as the idea is, a robot Buffy to act as a decoy could prove quite valuable." "Yeah." He finished his beer and reached for another. "How are we going to break it to our girl? Buffy's not going to take it well, and I don't want to bugger things up. She knows I love her." Giles nodded. "I know. She asked me and I told her. She took it well, I think, all things considered." Spike agreed. "Yeah, and things are going okay. Between us, I mean. Last time it was a complete disaster." "So I've read. Really, Spike, did you honestly think chaining her up and offering to kill Drusilla for her would make her believe you loved her?" Spike looked away. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Giles just shook his head and took another drink. "Speaking of Drusilla, I received word from my contacts in Argentina. Our box arrived safely. They will follow our instructions to leave it in broad daylight and break the lock. She'll have to wait for sundown before she can escape, so they'll be gone by then. Thanks, mate. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Not even Angel could bring himself to kill Drusilla. She is a tragic but necessary part of your lives. Besides, I owed you a life. You no doubt saved mine when you convinced Angelus to stop torturing me 2 years ago, and most likely saved me again when you placed yourself between me and Drusilla 4 days ago. Giles gave him a knowing glance, and yes, I did notice that. I am a watcher, after all. Still, it meant a lot to me. Thank you. Sorry. Still, it meant a lot to me. Thank you, he repeated, then smiled. So is the plan to get completely knackered before Bit comes down? It's that bad, is it? I thought you said it was easy. Okay, I admit it, I lied. It's pure hell, and us vamps are supposed to like that sort of thing. I swear Dante forgot the 10th level of hell in which men are forced to endure the never-ending torments of teenage girls tittering about clothes, makeup, and boys, throwing hormone-driven temper tantrums. Oh dear, a fate worse than death. A fate worse than death, Giles commented dryly. Or undeath. Do you need rescuing? You're offering a spot on your couch, if you still need it. He thought a moment. I could use another day or so of rest, and there's never telling who's going to pop into the crypt. But I'm healed up enough to go back if you want to keep your couch open. I just can't handle any fighting or moving about too quick. Not for another day at least. Well, we'll see, shall we? Spend the night at my place and go back to your crypt tomorrow if you're feeling up to it. Thanks, Roops. Can't have you going insane and staking yourself before we defeat Glory, can we? He grinned. I'm not going to stake myself, and I think I'm already certifiable. Really? What makes you think so? I've lasted 4 days in this house without going berserk. I've started to know the difference between ivory soap and Dove, and I'm actually beginning to recognize some of Bit's boy bands, he confessed. Giles eyed him warily. A true sign of an unstable mind. The loud cacophony of one of Dawn's said boy bands began pounding from upstairs as Dawn turned up the volume on her stereo. Both men cast eyes to the ceiling, noticing how the foyer light swayed from the beat. Oh, for the days when teenagers were hors d'oeuvres, Spike bemoaned. Giles sighed and handed him another beer. Buffy came home around midnight to relieve Giles of Dawn and vampire duty. Giles's relief was evident on his face, even though Dawn had been sent to bed an hour ago. Dear God, Buffy, there's only so much I can take. We're simply going to have to change the system. A 14-year-old is too old to be babysat. It's not fair to her, Giles said. What did she make you do? Buffy asked, knowingly. Well, we listened to some aggressively cheerful music sung by people chosen for their ability to dance. Then she painted Spike's nails and we ate cookie dough and talked about boys. Buffy struggled to hold back a laugh and only partly succeeded. I'm so sorry, but if it makes you feel any better, my fun-time Buffy party night involved watching a robot throw some guy who hit her across a table. A robot? That's interesting, Giles commented. A robot? Really? Spike added, coming to stand beside Giles. He dressed and was prepared to leave. How do you know it was a robot? Well, if she wasn't a robot, she was a very cheerful, wickedly strong girl able to toss me across a room. Are you hurt? He blurted. Buffy waved her hand dismissively. I'm fine. Just have a bruise. We're going to work on it in the morning. Or if you wanted to hang out a little longer, we could... Just then Joyce came through the door, a happy smile on her face. So, who wants to hear everything? She enthused. Listen to Mom talk about boys? Yes, right. Must go. See you tomorrow. Goodbye, Joyce, Giles said hastily, hurrying out. Bye, Rupert, Joyce said, waving one hand. I'm going to go with him. Slayer, Joyce, old Rupert's got some scroll or some such he thinks might have some info on that Glory bint. And it's written in one of the demon languages I know how to read, he lied smoothly. Buffy looked taken aback. Really? He didn't say anything about it to me. He just found out tonight before he came over. Promised to look at it for him and see what I could make of it. Spike, are you sure you're all right to leave? Joyce asked worriedly. He gave her one of his winning smiles. I'm just going to play over at Rupert's house and have a sleepover. I promise we won't stay up all night reading comic books and loving spitballs at each other. You, Buffy said. Well, if you're sure you're up to it, he gave Joyce a quick peck on the cheek. I am. I'll pop by tomorrow to see you. I'm so glad you had a wonderful time on your date. I do want to hear about it, but if I don't go now, Giles will leave me. Dawn traumatized him that much? Joyce asked Buffy. She made him eat cookie dough and listen to her talk about teenage crushes at school. I think she scarred him for life. He smiled. No doubt. See you tomorrow. Good night, Spike, Joyce said. Night, Spike, Buffy repeated. He walked out and Joyce closed the door behind him. As he walked to Giles's car, he heard Joyce joking with her daughter about leaving her bra in her date's car and laughed when he heard Buffy's cry of "Mother!" in response. He paused and looked back at the house, feeling lightweight for the first time since he had been sent back. Joyce was healthy. Buffy knew he loved her and hadn't completely shoved him from her life. Drew hadn't needed to be killed, and Giles was actually giving him a chance to prove himself. Maybe things were finally starting to look up. Good God, that's horrible. Don't do that, he heard Buffy gasp. I left it at the restaurant, was Joyce's reply. He heard the sound of footsteps as Buffy ran up the stairs, yelling, No more! On the dessert cart, Joyce called after her. Spike shook his head and continued on his way to where Giles was waiting. God, I love these Summers women.
Well, hey there. Welcome back, everybody. Wow, I did it. My first solo podcast. That was a tough one. It really was. If you had told me a week ago that I was going to do a solo podcast, firstly, I would have called you a liar, and then I would have ran away and hid under my bed for several hours, possibly several days. But yeah, just to kind of wrap up what I was talking about before, the insecurities and all that stuff. Insecurities are tough. Insecurities are tough. And airing them in a public way for everyone to see is even tougher. And especially the second insecurity I spoke about being fearful of being perceived as dumb and feeling inadequate and all of those things. And that's why I came close to just not sharing that, because I was worried about how I would be perceived. I was worried that people would think that I'm like up myself or egotistical. And honestly, I came close to just scrapping it. I was very much on the verge of a mini meltdown, shall we say. And so I reached out to one of my best friends, Liv, who pointed out that pretty much everybody feels like this at some point in their life. It's a very human thing, and there is absolutely no shame in it whatsoever. And she also pointed out how everyone, regardless of how small and how inadequate they may feel, everybody has something to contribute. Everybody has their own brand of smarts and creativity and insightfulness. Everybody has something to add of value that is uniquely theirs. And the contribution of one person isn't any more or any less valuable than that of another. So I want to give very special thanks to Liv for that conversation, because I think without it, I would have spiraled hardcore. I mean, I was already spiraling. And she also gave me a lot of great ideas for this podcast. And she also provided that amazing, crudely drawn picture of Ian that those of you watching on YouTube saw earlier. So cheers, Liv. And I also had a somewhat similar conversation with our dear friend Lani from Chipperish Media. I was really worried about this podcast and what I was going to do with it. I had no idea how to drive this whole thing on my own without Ian. Um, I mean, before Ian left, we talked about it a lot, and he gave me some wonderful and super helpful advice. But it was like as soon as he left, the reality of the situation kind of set in, and I really didn't know what to do. So Lani spent about an hour and a half or so in a video call with me, and she was just giving me advice on how to find my voice and how to lean into my strengths. And more importantly, she helped me to reinforce what my strengths are. It's not as if I had forgotten, but sometimes you just need a reminder, you know. And of course, I want to thank Ian for believing in me enough to do this. Ian and I, we met at a very dark time in my life, I'll say. I was very lonely, I was very depressed, and I really didn't have a lot going for myself. But we became friends, and he kind of took me under his wing. And a little later on, he invited me to be a part of Passion of the Nerd. And in doing so, he not only gave me a reason to get out of bed, but he gave me a reason to want to get out of bed in the morning. But most importantly, Ian, he helped me to find reasons to be proud of myself. And that is the single most greatest, the single greatest gift anyone has ever given me. I am an extremely lucky person. As if by dumb luck, I have found myself surrounded by some of the greatest and most loving human beings one could ask for. So, in saying all of that, it doesn't matter if you're not the most elegantly spoken. It doesn't matter if you stutter. It doesn't matter if it takes you ages to figure out what you want or what you need to say. It doesn't matter if you finally think of the perfect thing to say hours later once the beer is warm and everybody has gone home. Anyone can wave their intellectual dick around like it matters, but it doesn't matter at all. It's all bullshit. What matters is that you show up every time. What matters is that in spite of your fears and in spite of your insecurities, you push on and you move forward and you try to improve and get better and at whatever it is you want to get better at. And most of all, what matters is that you don't let all that fear and all of that doubt stop you from doing the things that you love. But in saying all of that, if you made it this far, thank you for hanging out, and I'll see you next week with Ian. Much love, friends.